38 games, 10 months, 20 teams, thousands of passes, hundreds of goals, moments of brilliance and moments of complete, humiliating collapse. Every club begins the season with belief. A new kit, a new signing, a new promise. Hope is the currency of August. But by May, by the very last afternoon of the very last match day, most of that hope has been spent. Ground down by November, betrayed by February, repossessed by April. In this league, greatness is not just earned over 38 games. Sometimes, and these are the days that define careers, clubs, and generations, it comes down to the final minutes of the final day. The Premier League was born in 1992. A rebranding, yes, but also a revolution. 20 clubs, live television, global reach. Within a decade, it had become the most watched football league in the world. Within 2 decades, it had become the most financially powerful. But money alone does not explain it. What draws 700 million people to their screens every week is something more primal than transfer fees and commercial partnerships. It is the chaos, the fundamental, maddening, beautiful unpredictability of a sport played on a pitch where anything, absolutely anything, can happen. Teams with £100 million squads have been beaten by clubs fighting relegation. Generational managers have been undone by tactical naivety. Title races have been surrendered in ways that defy rational explanation. And so every August, 20 clubs line up with the same starting currency, 0 points. Some have spent £1 billion to get there. Some are making their Premier League debut. The table, at that moment, does not distinguish. This is a documentary about the days when everything came down to the final whistle. 9 title races, 9 final days. Some decided in calm, some in agony, some in scenes so extraordinary that people who were there still struggle to describe them in plain language. To understand what Blackburn Rovers achieved in 1994 to 1995, you must first understand what they were. Not what they became, not the story that money tells, but what Blackburn was at its core. A small Lancashire town. A club that had last won the league title in 1914. A football operation with ambition that the town's population, barely 120,000 souls, could not possibly sustain on gate receipts alone. But Jack Walker had made his fortune in steel. And when a man from Blackburn makes a fortune, sometimes he brings it home. Walker bought the club in 1991 and immediately did what any true believer does. He spent lavishly, without embarrassment, and without the strategic detachment that wealthy owners in later years would adopt as fashion. He loved Blackburn Rovers the way a father loves a struggling child desperately, without condition. He appointed Kenny Dalglish as manager, a man who had won 3 titles at Liverpool and 1 at Blackburn's great Lancashire rival, representing a lineage of football intelligence that money could not manufacture. And in the summer of 1992, Dalglish did something that sent a message to every club in England. He paid £3.5 million for a 22-year-old Newcastle United centre-forward named Alan Shearer. It was the largest transfer fee in British football history at the time. It would not remain so for long. Blackburn entered the 1994 to 1995 season on the momentum of a third-place finish the previous year. They were legitimate contenders. Shearer had scored 31 league goals in 1993 to 1994. Sutton had arrived from Chelsea for £5 million. Together, the SAS Shearer and Sutton would score 49 Premier League goals between them across the season. They were relentless, complementary, devastating. Manchester United were the defending champions. Alex Ferguson had built something at Old Trafford that English football had not seen since the days of Liverpool's dominance, a dynasty. United had won the league in 1993 and 1994. They would not simply hand it over. Eric Cantona was at the peak of his powers. Roy Keane was maturing into the most complete midfielder in English football. Peter Schmeichel was untouchable. This was not a United side that submitted to pressure. And then the pivotal moment of the entire season, delivered not by a football, but by a moment of madness. Through February, March, and into April, Blackburn held their nerve. But not easily. They lost at Arsenal. They drew when they should have won. The Ewood Park crowd, so accustomed to watching their team in the lower divisions, seemed to carry its own anxiety onto the pitch. Ferguson, meanwhile, was applying pressure without even touching the pitch. He made the comment that would be dissected for decades. They can still blow it, you know. Whether calculated or genuine, it planted itself in the minds of every Blackburn player like a seed of doubt. Going into the final day of the season, the numbers were brutal in their simplicity. Blackburn Rovers needed a point. A draw at Anfield against a Liverpool side with no title stake but no shortage of pride would be enough. Manchester United, playing at West Ham, needed Blackburn to lose and United to win. May the 14th, 1995. 2 stadiums, 1 title. It began with belief for Blackburn. At Liverpool's Anfield, the nerves were obvious, but so was the determination. Early in the match, Blackburn found their breakthrough. The ball fell to Alan Shearer, the league's most feared striker, and he did what he had done all season. Goal. Blackburn led 1-0. For a moment, the travelling supporters could almost see the trophy. Across Lancashire, pubs erupted, radios crackled with excitement. After 81 years, Blackburn Rovers were within touching distance of the English League title. At Upton Park, meanwhile, Manchester United were chasing survival in the title race. They needed Blackburn to lose, and they needed to win themselves against West Ham United. Every attack carried desperation. Every missed chance tightened the pressure. But football rarely follows the script people expect. In the second half at Anfield, Liverpool struck back. John Barnes equalised from the penalty spot after a foul inside the area. Suddenly, Blackburn's advantage looked fragile again. 1-1. Now the pressure shifted entirely to Manchester United. If United could find a winner in London, the title would swing dramatically back toward Old Trafford. And then came the twist that transformed the afternoon into legend. At Upton Park, United simply could not break through. Chance after chance went begging. The clock drained away. Anxiety spread through the away end. Harry Redknapp's West Ham refused to bend. Then, in stoppage time at Anfield, Liverpool landed another blow. Jamie Redknapp curled in a stunning late free kick to make it 2-1 to Liverpool. Blackburn had lost, but incredibly, it still did not matter. Moments later, the final whistle sounded at Upton Park. Manchester United had drawn 1-1. Despite defeat at Anfield, Blackburn Rovers were champions of England. Players collapsed to the turf in disbelief. Supporters cried openly in the stands. Kenny Dalglish, who had returned Liverpool to greatness years earlier, had now guided Blackburn to one of the most improbable titles English football had ever seen. It remains one of the strangest and most dramatic conclusions to a title race in Premier League history, a team losing on the final day and still becoming champions. If the 1994 to 1995 season was about an outsider's improbable triumph, then 1995 to 1996 season is about something more complex and more painful. It is about the unraveling of a dream that seemed, for a few months, entirely within reach. Kevin Keegan had returned to Newcastle United as manager in 1992 and transformed them from a First Division club into one of the most exciting sides in England. By 1995 to 1996 season, Newcastle were playing football of startling ambition, open, attacking, relentless. David Ginola on the left, Peter Beardsley, returning home, threading everything together, Les Ferdinand bruising defenders, and Faustino Asprilla, mercurial, spectacular, chaotic waiting on the bench. It was the kind of football that made neutrals love a team. The kind of football that sells shirts and wins hearts, and sometimes does not win titles. On the 20th of January, 1996, Newcastle United led the Premier League by 12 points. 12. In a world of 3 points for a win, 12 points is a chasm. It is 4 wins. It is the kind of gap that managers call comfortable, while privately knowing it must still be defended. Manchester United had the defending champions' air about them, pragmatic, efficient, slightly ugly when required. They had started the season poorly. They had sold 3 experienced players and replaced them, audaciously, with 6 graduates from the youth academy: Nicky Butt, Gary and Phil Neville, Paul Scholes, David Beckham, and their jewel, Eric Cantona, returned from suspension with something to prove. The tabloids called them Fergie's fledglings. The legendary broadcaster Alan Hansen said, memorably, that you could not win anything with kids. It is the most famous piece of punditry ever delivered and the most wrong. Newcastle's undoing came from several directions simultaneously. Asprilla was signed in February and, while spectacular as an individual, disrupted the team's structure. Keegan's system built on fullbacks pushing forward and midfielders pressing required compactness that Newcastle gradually lost. They drew games they'd been winning. They lost at Arsenal. They fell to Manchester City. The 12-point lead became 10, then 8, then 5. United won. And won. And won. Not always prettily. The football was less aesthetically thrilling than Newcastle's, but it was accumulating like compound interest, inevitable, remorseless. The teams met at St James's Park on the 4th of March, with Newcastle still ahead. Eric Cantona scored the only goal of the game, a single goal. It cut the gap to 4 points with 12 games remaining, and perhaps more significantly, it said something about confidence. United were not afraid of this stadium or this crowd. And then came the moment that defined the season. In April 1996, Newcastle United travelled to Elland Road, knowing the pressure was becoming unbearable. The title race that once looked comfortable had tightened dramatically under the relentless pursuit of Manchester United. Newcastle won the match against Leeds United 1-0. On the surface, it was exactly the kind of result champions are supposed to produce: narrow, tense, professional. But the scoreline barely mattered anymore, because by then, the psychological battle had taken over the title race. For weeks, Alex Ferguson had applied pressure in public, questioning opponents, questioning intensity, subtly turning the spotlight onto Newcastle's nerves. Every press conference felt strategic. Every comment felt deliberate. The final day was largely a formality. Mathematically, the title belonged to United before a ball was kicked. Manchester United won 3-0 at Middlesbrough. Newcastle won their match too, but it was irrelevant. The gap had been closed from 12 points to nothing over the course of 4 months. It remains the largest mid-season lead surrendered in Premier League history. It would be wrong to call it simply a collapse. Newcastle United won 24 of their 38 games that season. In most years, that is a title-winning total. They were, genuinely, a wonderful football team who met a different kind of team, colder, more experienced, more calculating, and found that beautiful football alone is not always sufficient. Keegan resigned as Newcastle manager in January 1997. He never won the Premier League. That season is his and Newcastle's wound that refuses to fully heal. Ask any fan who was there what happened, and they will tell you exactly the date, the scoreline, the 12-point gap, the moment it started going wrong. They have not forgotten. They will not forget. And United? Ferguson won the double league and FA Cup. His kids had done what Alan Hansen said was impossible. He would never let a lead of 12 points be closed again. By 1998-99, the Premier League had two dominant forces, and they could not have been more different. Manchester United played football that was fast, direct, vertical, a system built around Beckham's crossing, Giggs's running, Cole and York's telepathic partnership, and the engine room drive of Keane. They were, in the words of those who played against them, relentless. You beat them and they came back. You led them and they equalised. You kept them level and they scored in the 92nd minute. Arsenal, under Arsene Wenger, were building their own empire. The previous season, they had completed the double Premier League and FA Cup, with football that was often more aesthetically pleasing than United's, and just as effective. Wenger's squad was European in character, and precise in execution. Patrick Vieira commanded midfield like a general. Dennis Bergkamp moved like thought itself, too quick to track, too intelligent to contain. Thierry Henry, newly arrived, was in the early stages of a career that would redefine what a striker could be. The 1998-99 season was one of the closest title races of the entire decade. For much of the campaign, Arsenal and United were separated by goal difference alone. Every dropped point felt seismic. Every win felt essential. But there was a crucial difference in the two clubs' campaigns. United were operating on three fronts: League, FA Cup, and Champions League. The treble, which no English club had ever achieved, was beckoning. Arsenal were not in Europe's elite competition at the same stage. Their entire focus was domestic. Their resources, attentional, physical, emotional, were less divided. In the spring, Arsenal made a formidable run. They cut the gap to 1 point, with only weeks remaining. The mathematics were tortuous. United needed to win their games. Arsenal needed to win theirs, and need United to drop points. And the problem for Arsenal, the fundamental, insurmountable problem, was Manchester United's refusal to lose. The 1998-99 title was not settled on the final day. It was settled in the final weeks, United winning games they had to win, Arsenal winning theirs but finding the gap too stubborn to close. United finished on 79 points. Arsenal finished on 78. 1 point. A single point across 38 games. In a different year, 78 points wins the league. In 1998-99, it wins nothing. What makes this season incomparable in Premier League history is that winning the league was the least dramatic thing United did that year. The FA Cup was won in a thriller against Newcastle. The Champions League final in Barcelona, United 2-0 down to Bayern Munich with seconds remaining. Needing a miracle, produced 2 late goals in injury time that changed football. Had won the treble. They had won the league by a single point, beaten Arsenal by margins so thin they left no room for argument. It was the greatest season in English club football history. And Arsenal, who had been brilliant, who had done almost everything right, had come second by a point. Second by a point. The phrase would haunt Highbury that summer. By 2007-2008, the Premier League had a new reality. Chelsea Football Club, bought by Russian billionaire Roman Abramovich in 2005, had spent £1 billion on players, hired the best manager in the world, and won back-to-back titles in 2005 and 2006. Jose Mourinho had arrived, clashed with Ferguson in a manner that was equal parts tactical brilliance and theatre, and then in September 2007 been dismissed replaced by Avram Grant. Manchester United had responded to Chelsea's billions with their own version of empire building. Cristiano Ronaldo was 23 years old and playing some of the most extraordinary football ever seen in England. He would score 42 goals across all competitions, but seasoned wingers simply did not do that. Wayne Rooney was fierce and irreplaceable. Rio Ferdinand and Nemanja Vidic had formed a central defensive partnership of such solidity that United conceded only 22 league goals all season. The 2007-2008 season became a two-horse race between United and Chelsea, despite Arsenal threatening early. United were consistent, grinding, magnificent. Chelsea, under Grant, less charismatic than Mourinho perhaps, but calmly effective, stayed within range all winter and spring. They refused to go away. Going into the final weeks, Chelsea were chasing. It came down to United needing to win their remaining games. And United, with Ronaldo at his peak, with Rooney and Tevez finding pockets of space that should not have existed, did exactly that. The title race entered the final day balanced on a knife edge. Both Manchester United and Chelsea arrived level on 84 points. But while the points were identical, the goal difference was not. United held a significant advantage, meaning the equation was clear. United simply needed to match Chelsea's result to remain champions. If Chelsea won, United would also need to win. If both sides drew, the title would stay at Old Trafford. And if both lost, United would still finish top. The pressure was immense because there was no margin for hesitation. One slip, one unexpected goal could shift the entire balance of the season. At the JJB Stadium, United faced Wigan Athletic, while Chelsea travelled to face Bolton Wanderers. 2 matches, 2 cities, 90 minutes separating glory from failure. Ronaldo scored at Wigan. United won 2-0. The title was confirmed while the Chelsea match was still being played. When the final whistle came at Wigan, the celebrations erupted not just because United had won, but because of what Ronaldo had produced that season. He finished with 31 Premier League goals and was named the world's best player. He would leave for Real Madrid the following summer for £80 million, then a world record. United finished 2 points clear of Chelsea, 87-85. In the Champions League final, they met again United, winning on penalties in Moscow, in a shootout that Ronaldo's missed spot kick made almost unbearable before Edwin van der Sar saved from Nicolas Anelka. It was United's 3rd treble attempt, this time completed differently. League and Champions League, the European double, another year that defined an era. The 2009-2010 season saw Chelsea produce something that Ferguson's United, still powerful, still loaded with Rooney, and the remnants of the Ronaldo era could not match. It was not quite the invincible relentlessness of United at their best. It was something more controlled, more purposeful, more confident in its own sufficiency. Carlo Ancelotti built a Chelsea side that was simultaneously defensively strong and offensively fluent. Frank Lampard finished the season with 27 goals, 27 from central midfield. Didier Drogba added 29. No other club in the league had 2 players remotely close to those numbers. The final day of the 2009-2010 season is not in this documentary primarily for its tension, because the tension, while real, was always likely to be resolved in Chelsea's favour. But for the sheer extravagance of its ending, Chelsea needed a win. They won 8-0. 8 goals, against a Wigan side who were also fighting for their own survival, who conceded and kept conceding while the Stamford Bridge faithful counted each one with growing delirium. Drogba scored 4. Lampard scored 2. The title was not just won, it was announced. Chelsea finished the season on 86 points, 1 clear of United. In a season of close racing and narrow margins, the final whistle at Stamford Bridge was accompanied by a noise that registered somewhere between celebration and release. Ancelotti had also overseen a League and FA Cup double. His Chelsea were clinical, powerful, and very nearly perfect. Within a year, he would be sacked. Football is rarely grateful. In September 2008, Manchester City were bought by Abu Dhabi United Group, a sovereign wealth investment vehicle backed by Sheikh Mansour bin Zayed. The scale of what followed had no precedent in English football. They had appointed Roberto Mancini and built a squad of extraordinary depth and quality. They had won the FA Cup in 2011, ending a 35-year trophy drought. And in 2011-2012, they were going to win the title. Roberto Mancini's Manchester City were assembled as though by someone who had been given the most expensive football video game in existence and unlimited credits. But they were also very good. This was not just money. This was talent deep, varied, European talent in a Premier League that had never seen quite this level of investment channeled into a single side. In April 2012, Manchester City led the title race by 8 points, with 6 games remaining. It seemed, to everyone who looked at the table, that the question was not whether City would win the league, but whether they could do it without drama. By the final day of the season, the two Manchester clubs were level on 86 points. But City held the crucial advantage: goal difference. The mathematics were brutally simple. If both teams won, City would be champions. If both teams drew, City would still be champions. United needed to better City's result to reclaim control of the title race. On one side of England, United travelled to face Sunderland. On the other, City hosted Queen's Park Rangers at the Etihad. At the Stadium of Light, Manchester United were winning. Wayne Rooney scored. United led 1-0. The mathematics were in Ferguson's hands. What happened at the Etihad in the second half of that match is one of the most remarkable passages of football in the history of the sport. Manchester City, the wealthiest squad ever assembled in English football, at home, needing only to win, needing to simply do what they had been paid to do, were losing 2-1 to Queen's Park Rangers. QPR had gone down to 10 men after Joey Barton's red card. 10 men. City had more than an hour to equalise. They could not. The clock ran down. The Etihad fell into a particular silence that the people who were there describe as the silence of a dream ending. At Sunderland, the final whistle blew. Manchester United had won. If City did not score 2 goals in injury time, the title was going to Old Trafford for the 20th time. 89 minutes. City were losing. United were champion-elect. The 44-year wait was extending into 45. Edin Dzeko, 91 minutes. A header from a corner. 2-2. 1 goal from the title. 1 minute, maybe 2 remaining. The crowd noise at the Etihad reached a register that audio equipment struggles to reproduce cleanly. Mario Balotelli, Sergio Aguero, a wall pass in the penalty area. The ball hit the back of the net in the 93rd minute and 20 seconds of the 93rd game of Manchester City's title-winning season. United had finished on 89 points. City had finished on 89 points. The title was decided by goal difference. For months, it felt like destiny was pulling Liverpool toward the title. Under Brendan Rodgers, Liverpool played fearless football, fast, aggressive, emotional. At the heart of it all stood Luis Suarez, producing one of the greatest individual Premier League seasons ever witnessed, while Daniel Sturridge and Raheem Sterling overwhelmed defences with pace and movement. And then there was Steven Gerrard, the captain chasing the one trophy that had always escaped him. Liverpool surged into pole position with an astonishing 11-match winning streak late in the season, including a dramatic victory over Manchester City at Anfield, a match many believed would decide the title. The emotion inside Anfield that day felt overwhelming. Supporters sang louder. players celebrated harder. Gerrard gathered the squad into a huddle after the final whistle and delivered the words that became symbolic of Liverpool's belief. "This does not slip now, but football can be cruel precisely when certainty begins to feel strongest." Just weeks later came the moment that changed everything. Against Chelsea at Anfield, Gerrard slipped near midfield while attempting to control the ball. Demba Ba raced through and scored. Liverpool lost 2-0. The title race suddenly reopened. Then came the chaos at Selhurst Park. Liverpool pushed desperately for more goals instead of controlling the match. What followed became known simply as the Crystanbul collapse. Crystal Palace scored once, then again, then, unbelievably, a third. 3-3. In a matter of minutes, Liverpool's title hopes crumbled, and unlike so many dramatic finales before them, they never truly looked like surrendering it. Goals from Samir Nasri and Vincent Kompany settled the nerves at the Etihad. Even when West Ham responded, City remained composed. The final whistle confirmed it. Manchester City were champions once again. For Liverpool supporters, the ending felt heartbreaking because the dream had seemed so close, so emotionally inevitable. Yet for neutrals, the 2013-14 season became unforgettable. A title race fueled by momentum swings, attacking football, and the brutal unpredictability that defines the Premier League at its most dramatic. The 2018-19 title race felt less like a football season and more like a prolonged test of perfection. Liverpool were extraordinary. Under Jurgen Klopp, they played with ferocity, speed, and emotional intensity. Week after week, they won. And still, somehow, Manchester City stayed ahead. By the final day, Liverpool had accumulated 94 points, a total that would have won the Premier League in almost any other era. But City still held the advantage. One win away at Brighton and Hove Albion would secure back-to-back league titles for Pep Guardiola's side. At Anfield, Liverpool handled their own task professionally against Wolverhampton Wanderers. Sadio Mane scored, and the crowd responded to every update from the South Coast with nervous anticipation. Second-half goals from Riyad Mahrez and Ilkay reflected Guardiola's machine-like side. Liverpool finished with 97 of the 2018-19 race. It was not decided by collapse, not by inconsistency, not by failure. It was decided because one team was almost perfect, and the other was somehow even better. For Liverpool, it was a loss without humiliation. They had played as well as a team can play and been beaten by a single point. The Champions League was still ahead of them. They won it in Madrid 6 days later, defeating Tottenham Hotspur 2-0. It was compensation of the most meaningful kind, but it was not the league, and everyone at Anfield knew the difference. In January 2022, Manchester City led Liverpool by 14 points. 14! The 12-point Newcastle lead of 1996 had been described for 26 years as the great surrendered advantage in Premier League history. City's 14-point gap seemed to make even that comparison irrelevant. City, operating on multiple fronts, FA Cup, Champions League, stumbled. Dropped points they should not have dropped. At Tottenham, in February. At Southampton, where they drew. The gap that had seemed as permanent as geography began to compress. 10 points. 7, 4, 2. By April, the title could credibly go either way. Their meeting at the Etihad Stadium in April perfectly captured the balance of power. The match ended 2-2, with City's goals coming from Kevin De Bruyne and Gabriel Jesus, while Liverpool responded through Diogo Jota and Sadio Mane. The draw left City still top. 1 point, but City still controlled their own destiny. The final weeks of the 2021-2022 season were exercises in collective nerve. City won 7 consecutive league games. Liverpool won their 7. Nobody cracked. Nobody let the other in. The gap remained 1 point. It remained 1 point until the last day. May the 22nd, 2022. Final day. All 20 Premier League matches kicking off simultaneously, as they have since the league's administrators decided that simultaneous kickoffs were the fairest way to end a season. Manchester City needed a win or a draw. Liverpool needed City to drop points and Liverpool to win. The maths were simple. The execution would be anything but. If City defeated Aston Villa at the Etihad, the title was theirs, regardless of Liverpool's result against Wolverhampton Wanderers. But football rarely respects simple equations. Inside the Etihad, tension spread early. Then came the shock. Matty Cash rose to head Aston Villa into the lead in the first half. Suddenly, murmurs replaced confidence inside the stadium. The Etihad fell quiet, with a speed that crowds in stadiums are not supposed to fall quiet. 60,000 people, processing the mathematics simultaneously. If this ends 2-1, Liverpool win the title on the final day of the season. Meanwhile, at Anfield, Liverpool were struggling themselves, initially trailing Wolves before fighting back. 2 minutes later, Rodri fired in the equaliser from outside the area. Now panic had transformed into momentum. Villa were reeling. And then, in the 81st minute, City completed the comeback. Kevin De Bruyne delivered a low cross into the box, and Gundogan arrived again, guiding the ball home to make it 3-2. The Etihad exploded. Players sprinted toward the corners. Fans collapsed into one another. Guardiola dropped to his knees. In just 5 extraordinary minutes, Manchester City had transformed despair into triumph. Liverpool won their own match against Wolves, but it no longer mattered. For the second time in 4 years, the Premier League title race had gone to the final day between City and Liverpool. And once again, it had delivered chaos, heartbreak, and unforgettable drama right to the final whistle. 9 seasons, 9 final days or final weeks of supreme consequence. Each one unique in its dramaturgy, its emotional register, its capacity for the unexpected. The 1994-1995 season gave us Blackburn's improbable triumph, won by losing, decided somewhere else. A title for the Dreamers. 1995-1996 gave us Newcastle's collapse. 1998-1999 gave us the most dominant team, United's treble running past Arsenal by a single point, while simultaneously conquering Europe, the kind of season that exists outside normal comparison. 2007-2008 gave us the last act of Ronaldo's United 2 points, a title confirmed with a goal from the man who would leave that summer for the most expensive transfer in history. 2009-2010 gave us Chelsea's emphatic statement 8-0 on the final day. 2011-2012 gave us Aguero 93-20, the most famous goal in Premier League history. 2013-2014 gave us Gerrard's slip, 1 foot, 1 second, 1 generation's hope sliding away on the Anfield turf. 2018-2019 gave us perfection, 97 points not being enough. 2 clubs of extraordinary quality racing each other towards an impossible standard. And 2021-2022 gave us the comeback, a 14-point deficit, a half-time deficit on the final day, and a German midfielder named Gundogan, who chose the biggest stage in football to be, briefly, the most important person in the room.